Sit your asses down. I have something I need to talk about. Is metal sexist? Alright, let's cut the fluff. Let's get down to the nitty-gritty about this really famous thing to say about heavy metal, which is that it is sexist. Recently, one of my most popular videos that I've gotten a ton of fantastic responses to, thank you guys so much for the comments. I read all of them and I try to reply to all of them. I get quite a few comments nowadays, so sometimes I'm not able to. That was my video on like heavy metal's fascination with female vocalists. One of the ideas that I wanted to talk about recently was this whole fucking trend of people thinking that metal has been sexist for a while. And I think that there are a lot of credible reasons to think that. And in this video, I'm simultaneously going to be playing devil's advocate for some of the reasons and trying to explain some of the reasons that I've seen, but also debunk some of the myths. So first off, I don't know who needs to hear this, but if you are prone to do something shitty or to have a really shitty opinion, that's on you. That's not on influence. That's not on the world. I fully understand that environmental causes can be a major influence to why people elicit violence or have certain hate speech patterns, and in general, I think that the internet age has given a platform for a lot of very dangerous people with dangerous ideas, and it obviously is a very free world, and you are allowed to say and do what you think, obviously, unless you live in a country that doesn't allow that, which is horrible. You should be able to say and do what you want as long as you're not hurting someone. But generally speaking, the philosophy that I have always adapted to is you are in charge and responsible to educate yourself about things. If you have dangerous opinions, if you have hateful opinions, if you have bigoted opinions, or any sort of opinion about a group of people solely because you think it is the only way that something is, chances are that either your media diet or your upbringing set you down a road where it is the only thing that you were exposed to. And I can't tell you how many stories, sadly, that you hear of people just changing how they think over time because they are exposed to different things that they didn't know existed. And unfortunately, I think, like I said, in the media age, there are just a lot of platforms that have been given to big people that have loud voices that spread these opinions. The only way that you can blame someone for setting you on a path where you do something bad or hurt someone is if they actively promoted said thing or said that it was the correct thing to do. If they are not actively telling you what to do, if they're not actively spreading that agenda, spreading that narrative, and trying to send people out to do that, you cannot blame them when someone goes out and does that. It doesn't matter if it's a musician, it doesn't matter if it's an activist, it doesn't matter if it's a YouTuber, it doesn't matter if it's a fucking politician. If someone isn't actively spreading a narrative to you and you are eating that up and acting like they are so self-righteous that you have to follow their path, there is no reason that they are to blame for your shitty decisions. And anyone that holds other people accountable for the actions of someone, it's the classic saying that the sins of the son are not the sins of the father until they are. But with that being said, there is a massive reason that people have thought that metal elicits violence, elicits sexism, elicits bigotry. And I want to go over this in kind of quadrants. I think I may do multiple videos about different topics within this sort of philosophical debate. But the primary thing that I'm going to talk about today is sexism. And I'm going to be linking my video on metal's fascination with female vocalists either in the description or a pinned comment or both. I highly suggest that if you're interested in this topic and you want to hear me talk more about it in depth, to go to that video as well, because I go over a lot of different variations of people and the way that they think about female vocalists. So I'm not going to reiterate myself, and I'm going to just go into some of the details. There are numerous metal genres in the extreme field that have pushed a narrative for a while against women, and not necessarily pushed a narrative against them, but just have had some very gross standards and lyricism. This is very prevalent in genres like death metal, and specifically genres like grindcore, and especially genres like gore grind and porno grind. And it's easy to see some of these album covers, these album titles. I did a video about like cringing at porno grind lyrics, and that video is a prime example of how a lot of metal lyrics can really make some people think that the general metalhead hates women. And in the modern age of incel culture, I'm not going to lie and tell you that there aren't people that hate women in metal, but lyricism is not an indication of an entire movement, because the big thing I wanted to make an example for is if we're going to say these things in a degrading way to women, why are we going to hold it to a different standard when you get that same thing from, say, hip-hop music, which is notorious and historically seen as being a genre that talks down, degrades, and demeans women depending on what subgenre you're talking about, or how so many country musicians have pretty much built entire brands on seeing women as objects and selling it to a bunch of 40-year-old men drinking Budweisers. I don't know why metal has a specific reputation, and I think it just comes down to extremity and shock value. When you are standing on the outside looking in from a window that has a very dark tint to it and very dark glass to it, unfortunately, you are going to immediately believe that because of these extreme lyrics, it automatically means that these people hate women, that they are degrading and demeaning to women. And obviously, I don't personally condone lyrics like that, because I do think they are very disgusting and over the top. That's why I made a fucking video laughing at them. I do think it's very over the top. I do think it's unnecessary. But people have been doing things in a shocking way to so many different groups throughout all of history and music in the extreme form that I genuinely think a lot of it just comes down to the shock value accompanying the extreme music, because by virtue of those genres existing, gore grind and porno grind, they notoriously try to go for the shock and awe value. So some of these extreme lyrics that you see from bands like Gut and Cock and Ball Torture and Torso Fuck, I don't genuinely think that they are going out and getting shit on by elephants and digging up corpses and pissing on them and then fucking the corpses. That's very explicit, but I genuinely don't think that the band members that frequent these genres are acting on these morbid obsessions. Do you think that no one would know? Do you think no one would find out? These fairly popular bands in the underground extreme veneer, you think that people wouldn't find out? Trust me, it is the internet age. Anytime someone does anything, no matter what band you're in, no matter what genre you're in, people find out about it. But that moves on to the next point, and that unfortunately is, it does give a platform for people that already have that in them, and that is a very important thing to note. Like I said at the start of the video, it is something that you have to have in you. It has to be something that is pre-existing, because you're not just going to stumble. The average person isn't just going to stumble upon a porno grind release and be like, yeah, necrophilia, I definitely want to try that. That sounds baller. That sounds amazing. I want to try that. They're not just going to see one of these bands and be like, yeah, I'm going to try that. They literally have to be sick and twisted individuals that already have that predisposition in them, and they're going to go out of their way once they listen to that to add credence, because they're like, well, someone else thinks like me, because they're so warped and twisted in their own head that what they value and what they worship and think is right in the world, when they hear a band that is doing what they say and talking about what they say, they're going to make the false equivalency that because they are talking about this, that must mean they're doing it. And that moves me on, unfortunately, to my next point. Heavy metal, by nature, is a very male and masculine dominated community. It is the type of thing of when you talk about the gaming industry. There are plenty of women that are in the gaming industry that play games that are more masculine dominated. But when you get the bro mentality within a community, chances are women are going to be looked at as different. I come from a community in the voice acting community that is very male and masculine dominated, and notoriously there has been a ton of creepy, weird treatment towards female voice actors because it is a very masculine-led community. And this goes for video games, this goes for heavy metal, and generally speaking, if you are in a community that is most of the time the loudest from men, that is going to be most likely an atmosphere that is very masculine dominated. And it makes it to where it is very hard to speak up about this if you are a woman. Specifically in some of the more niche subgenres, people are going to gravitate towards things that are like them. And sadly, there just is not that much representation for females in some of the very, 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 very large-scale bands. There are plenty of fantastic female-fronted black metal bands, death metal bands, grindcore bands, heavy metal bands, thrash metal bands, whatever you want to say. But on average, if you look at the comparison of popular and famous metal bands in a variety of niches, chances are they're going to be male-led. And so it's built up this ecosystem of bands that are able to sort of talk about women in this degrading way, because unfortunately you don't hear a lot of metal front women speaking up about this. And that doesn't even go into a lot of the finer details about things like gender, things like sexuality, things like race. That is a whole nother story. But when you combine that with the notorious categorization of female vocalists held to such a weird standard and sort of put on this weird pedestal that is not in the positive way, but is in the obsessive or gross way, or held to a completely different standard and label that really makes it feel more, I guess, segregated is the way that I would say, where everything is put into a little box. But saying that metal is inherently sexist is just far from the mark, because just like everything else, you have to have that in you first and foremost. And when it comes to metal, it is a very masculine-led thing, and there are a lot of kind of incel types within it. And considering that metal is known for being sort of the outsider culture, it's going to attract outcasts. And when those outcasts are male, it's going to create an atmosphere and an environment that is very specific to the people that you're talking to. Do I think that if you walk up to the average metalhead, they're going to say they hate women? No. But does that mean that they're not going to treat women to a different standard if they see them in a band, if they see them on a stage, if they see them in a crowd? Unfortunately, I think that's just the way it is. It's not held to the same standard. It's not held to an equal standard. But by the same token, I don't think that metal is, by virtue, by its nature, a sexist thing. And I don't think that the movement itself breeds that. I just think that it's given a platform to a lot of people that have used the music to spread a hateful message, or to sort of invigorate their own hateful or damaging opinions and their own biases because of their own warped mentalities. That's just my opinion. Agree or disagree? Let me know down in the comment section below. I can't wait to hear it. Let's have a little conversation about this. I would love to hear what you think about this. Have you had any experiences with this? Do you have any opinions of this? Let me know down below. Be sure to like this video if you enjoyed it, subscribe to join the review family today, and smash that notification bell to be notified of my future uploads. You know who it is. My name is Jay Morris, and I'm signing off saying farewell.